Disclaimer. This video isn't made to impose that ancient Egyptian history was only one type of people.
You can call them black, but call it while you acknowledge the physical diversity of Africans. Checkmate.
Afro-Asiatic people were a big part of the history. The E1B1B DNA haplogroup is primarily distributed in North Africa, but they was not the founders of the civilization. Sub-Saharan Africans were.
Sir Wallace Budge also said, the ancient Egyptian language can't be Semitic in origin because it contains too many words that express fundamental relationships, feelings, and beliefs that are peculiarly African and foreign to Semitic peoples.
What's right is right, what's wrong is wrong. I'm gonna sing a song all day long. I'm searching.
Egyptian scholar Gamal Mokhtar stated, the inventory of hieroglyphic symbols is entirely based on melodic fauna and flora, thus proving that the script is of purely African origin.
One of my favorite groups on Earth to learn about that gets almost no attention in the Western world are the Nilotes of Sub-Saharan Africa, who almost appear to be a caricature of African features.
Where are all my Kemetic brothers at? Where you at? Where the Kemetic brothers at right there?
I'm making the distinction of the E1B and the E1B1A. 1A is the people that we're going to call the Eurasian people or people from Northern Africa, which is the difference between the Sub-Saharan Africans, which are us, the Negro.
Why must you be hard-headed?
The E1B1A DNA haplogroup is primarily distributed in Sub-Saharan Africa.
Craig G and Molly Wall, we form the ultimate alliance. No sucker can deal when I'm dropping science. I'm dropping science.
And so I said, well, let me take my DNA test. It was a 23andMe DNA test. And I took the test, and I was shocked when I saw the results. It came back, and it showed that I was actually a direct descendant of the Pharaoh Ramesses III, and I knew nothing of the Pharaoh.
This is for those that's lost like the Bermuda Triangle.
I'm spiritual and I'm real.
Spirituality to the African is that I'm conscious of the fact that I am God.
Kushite Kemetic spiritual science is the path to self-empowerment. It does not rely on an external ghost savior like the Abrahamic religions or the detached escapism of Indian Asian religion. And this is Black Divine Awakening.
I'm here to wake you all up.
Pot of gold right here, man. This is it, man. This is glory. No doubt. We gonna move on, man. Son, long as the love and the trust is there, son.
Black Angel. Black Angel. As well as the two from the 21st dynasty. And we see Thuya, Yuya, Amenhotep III, Tutankhamun, Amen, and Ramses the Third. And an unknown man E, which is probably Pentuer, whoever was in KV 55 BC and KV 35 YLC. And we can simply take this information and do what Soikieta did. He popped it into a pop affiliator with ethnic group probabilities and limit the ethnic group probabilities to 3 groups. We can do this too. We can take this data. He showed us how to do it. So I got all the data. It's public. This is Zahi Hawas's data. And Soikieta is a geneticist. Right? So then, if he took the dude data and ran it through the pop affiliator and look at the results. Look at the results. Screenshot this page.
We don't call it an Afro-Asiatic culture, but we actually call it a Nilotic culture. A Nilotic situation.
The Nilotes are perhaps one of the most phenotypically unique people on the entire planet, with an almost universal appearance consisting of jet black skin, quite distinct facial features.
The Nilotes also speak a Nilotic language, which is a branch of the much larger Nilo-Saharan languages.
The identity of the Ta-Seti people has not yet been definitively established. From what is known today, the Ta-Seti are believed to have spoken a Nilo-Saharan language.
How the first known in Egypt was Ta-Seti, but Ta-Seti was Ta-Seti already. Yep, it meant the land of the bow, and when Egyptians needed archers, this is where they would go to recruit them. I got arrows and I shoot them. Who them fake pharaohs? I uproot them and use Black Egypt.
Ta-Seti is the place name. The English translation is Nubia, Ta-Seti, which is the first nome of Upper Egypt.
History always repeats itself, so it's important that you educate yourself on historical facts.
Because out of blackness came everything else, all other colors. You don't get red if it ain't black. You don't get, you don't come from. No, listen, you don't get yellow if it ain't black. So black is the root of all. And how you denounce it when it's the root, it's just like we are the goddamn root of humanity.
With the inclusion of modern and ancient genomes combined with their method, the researchers were able to make a prediction on where our common ancestors lived. The inferred geographic region from their oldest samples suggested that they originated in Sudan.
African children are living in a concrete situation. African children, they don't know where you're coming from. No.
Again, this says what? What this say, Juju? What this say?
It said located upstream of the first cataract of the Nile, today northern Sudan and Upper Egypt. People lived in ancient Nubia from at least 300,000 BC.
So this is very important, Sudan and Upper Egypt.
Now, the thing about the one in Nata Playa, or the origin map, is the places in Nata Playa was the Nubian territory in those days, 10,000 years ago. So it's 8 to 10,000 years ago. What you will see is what they did in megaliths. You're going to see it turn into pyramids, or like I said before. The thing that's important about that, you see a continuity coming from southern Africa to Nata Playa to the Giza Plateau. Now, in the origin map, they have actually a 26,000 year cycle. It's not 26,000, I'm just rounding it off because it's 25,960 year cycle. So I'm just rounding it off, 26 year cycle. In order to see a cycle, to know that that cycle is a cycle, you have to sit up and see another one. And another one say, you pretty sure, you know, that you have a cycle, so on and so forth. But when you see it for the third time, you know exactly that's what the cycle was.
This breathtaking wonder is a massive standing stone circle that spans 30 meters in diameter and is located deep in the heart of Mpumalanga in South Africa. The megalithic stone circle is a rare and unique example of a fully functioning and mostly intact astronomical calendar. But this isn't just any ancient site, as it's estimated to be over 75,000 years old, and its original shape can still be seen from satellite images. There stand at its center two magnificent upright stones, intricately carved and shrouded in mystery. These stones, all crafted from dolomite, are a staggering 5 tons each and are thought to have been transported from a distant location.
See, there it is again. You see it? Yeah. Now you see right here, this stone right here?
Right.
Is a hawk.
Is a what?
A hawk.
Oh, okay.
In megalith.
Right, I see.
You will see that. That's Horus.
Right.
That's going to later, Heru. That's going to later turn up into Egypt.
The Adams calendar site has been found to have various astronomical alignments, and its discovery challenges many long-held assumptions about the history of human civilization. It suggests that there may have been ancient cultures that were far more advanced than previously thought, and that these cultures may have had a significant impact on the development of human society. Originally, it was thought to be the remains of kraals left by African tribes as they moved south in the 13th century. However, researchers have concluded that it was once an astronomical observatory and a possible ancient religious temple. Remarkably, up to 20,000 similar structures have been discovered throughout the region, and even more astonishing, the calendar still works today, with the setting sun casting shadows on the rocks and revealing the changing seasons and times. According to isiZulu elders, this site is called the birthplace of the sun, and the community's ceremonies are still held here. It is also believed that the calendar stones can receive energy from other ancient sites around the world, and as with many other stone monuments, Adam's calendar loosely aligns with the celestial world and it remains a testament to the incredible ingenuity of our ancient ancestors.
The museum in Aswan is called the Nubian Museum. And what's interesting about this place is that behind me here we have all the stones from Nab to Playa, which is in the southern desert, almost on the Sudanese border in Nubia. Now they've been moved from their original location, but what's interesting is that it's a form of stone circles, although very small ones, that date to at least 4,500, possibly to 6,000 BC.
Some researchers, including Christopher Ehret, have suggested a Nilo-Saharan linguistic affinity for the Napta people.
See these three megaliths right here? Right here? Well, these three megaliths right here represent, on the ground, Orion's belt, what the Europeans call, and Sahu is what the ancient Kemites call. Now,
we have also, in the past, asserted that the Sphinx was originally a lion, which interestingly correlates to the following hypothesis with fascinating accuracy: the Orion theory. The coincidence with pyramids aligned with Orion's belt and other significant constellational positions. Bauval and Hancock support the theory, believing the Great Sphinx was begun in 10,500 BC, creating reference to the constellation of Leo and the orientation of the entire complex with the Nile River and even Milky Way, claimed by them as connected respectively.
you see this right here in the Milky Way?
Right.
We knew where we was at in the Milky Way at that point.
The Great Pyramid is not only perfectly aligned to the cardinal points, its placement on the Earth is seemingly intentional as well.
If you pass a great circle from the Great Pyramid through its cardinal and its ordinal directions, what you find is that these circles will pass through more landmass of the Earth than any other location on the Earth. You find that the Great Pyramid is essentially located at the centre of the world's landmass.
The Great Pyramid was built at the level of technological sophistication far in excess of anything that we have today. They don't use the inch as we normally have it in the English system, it's the cubit. And what's interesting about this cubit is that it is exactly 1/25 millionth of the polar diameter of the Earth, meaning the distance from the North Pole to the South Pole of the Earth. Chop it up into 25 million pieces, there's your cubit. It's perfect.
So if you actually take the length of the Great Pyramid at its mean socket level, which is the corners of the actual building, it translates into 365.24 pyramid cubits, which just happens to be the Earth right down to a quarter day.
The measurements of the length and width of the perimeter of the Great Pyramid correspond to an exact fraction of both the latitude and longitude measurements at the equator. Scaled up, this means the Great Pyramid directly corresponds to the circumference of the equator, as well as the measurement from the equator to the pole, making it a scale model of the Northern Hemisphere.
If you take the location of the Great Pyramid as a coordinate, this number sequence of this coordinate matches exactly the speed of light traveling through space, measured in meters per second. This is amazing stuff. When you consider the vast amount of information about the Earth that's encoded into the Great Pyramid, you can't just dismiss all of this as pure coincidence.
There's been some controversy or some debate over who built the Great Pyramids of Giza, who designed them. Why don't you elaborate on that?
Well, when European scholars, without justification of any kind, thought that they had, or somebody belonging to them had done it, without doing any kind of investigation, they were built by men. When African scholars again returned into power, challenged this view and then support by evidence, and they could not longer claim it, then it meant a little, I guess, green or pink or technicolor men from outer space, speaking whatever language you want, built them equally without any justification. The evidence point to, number one, that the pyramids were built by human beings, and by the way, have nothing to do with slavery, nothing to do with a single Jew building the pyramid, and that was my religion, right? So if I'm going to be prejudiced, I should be the other way.
It's absolutely true. First of all, the greatest genius when it came to the building of the pyramids, do you know what
those are white people, by the way.
Who are white people?
The Egyptians are not African.
But I'm trying to understand.
Yeah, we did.
No, you didn't. No, you didn't. Because first of all, they were building things in Egypt while white Europeans were still in caves. That's a fact.
That's
a fact. Okay.
Sure.
The first humans are thought to have entered Europe 35,000 BC. The extinction of the Neanderthals in Europe. 6,300 years ago, the European Neolithic is assumed to have arrived from the Near East via Asia Minor, the Mediterranean, and the Caucasus. The oldest European civilization is the Minoan civilization, which existed between 3200 and 1450 BCE. As shown previously, the 75,000 years old African Stonehenge is the world's oldest man-made structure on Earth.
See it? Yeah. Now you see right here, this stone right here?
Right.
Is a hawk.
Is a what?
A hawk.
Oh, okay.
In Megalithic.
Right, I see.
You can see that. That's Horus.
Right.
That's going to later, Heru. That's going to later turn up into Egypt.
Even though there are numerous astronomical alignments at the site, Adam's calendar is probably the only fully functional and almost exact megalithic stone calendar in the world.
Do you know where Egypt is?
Yes, it's in North Africa.
Okay, stop. Stop.
Question. Did you know, according to the census, that people born in North Africa are classified as white? How is the country under Egypt white if Sudan literally means land of the blacks in Arabic, Balad al-Sudan, and is where the darkest humans, Nilotic, Nilo-Saharan, in the world originated from and are till this day?
The features of this unique racial group is a consequence of their position and environment in the continent of Africa, lying in one of the hottest, most humid overall places in the world.
We understand white Egypt is an Arab republic and Arabians are white, but there is no logic for Sudanese being white. North Africa and Middle East are both social constructs to control land. The English, who are white and pan-Europeans, are the royal family of the world through controlling slavery and ending it as well. So white supremacy is lived throughout colonialism. Egypt and Sudan currency are both the British pound.
For the Sudanese is an Egyptian, and the Egyptian is a Sudanese.
Europe and the Middle East are both historically enemies of black people of African descent.
Let us also drop these crazy ideas that we must all be Arabs. Even God will not accept this.
Now let's break down this biblical history.
Nothing that ever brought into Africa from the outside was meant to do the African any good. That means all other religions. Islam was the handmaiden of Arab imperialism. Christianity was the handmaiden of European imperialism. The Hebrew faith was the handmaiden of a concept called the chosen people.
I'm a king, my woman's a queen. Master of the heart, that we are the God. I study hard like John Henry Clark.
For 3,000 years, our greatest enemies came from Western Asia.
This is from the Stele of Kamos, and it reads, "My wish is to save Egypt and defeat the Asians."
They were trying to avenge the fact that they were once African colonies.
Also, it's a source stating that Southern Levant was a colony of Egypt, and the evidence is Nilotic material culture at select sites in Southern Levant, 3150 BCE.
You read a book called When Egypt Ruled the East.
And this is a sentence from the book, and it reads, "It is probable that Nilotic people pulled in from the south."
And you get some of the basic information on this. Now, the first visitors to Africa came in the 1700s BC. These were the people who would later be called Hebrews.
But the evidence showed that Abraham, the first Jew, was not born when the last pyramid was built. And that's the reason. You know, it's no way it's written in Torah, the Jewish Bible, that Jews built pyramid. This is a folkloric nonsense. Now, because the first time we are hearing of Abraham is about 1675 before the Common Era. The exact time we're hearing about the Hyksos, the first non-African invaders of Egypt. The Africans of Egypt are already in the 13th dynastic period. The invasion is going to end the 13th and start a new, or the first foreign invasion. All 95 of the pyramids are already built. The last of the 95 pyramids built in the 12th dynasty, Abraham isn't born until the 13th dynasty. So you can't build a pyramid before you're born. But let's go a little further than that. The first pyramid is built by Imhotep and became the first building ever built by stone by any human anywhere. That is going to change the whole world.
To support the biblical narrative, Mesopotamia is considered the birthplace of civilization.
Now, black people are ticklish on this because black people think that everything in the Bible is true. I question the intelligence of anyone who thinks everything in the Bible is true or supposed to be true.
This strategic area in Eurasia, cradle of many civilizations, has been called Levant, Middle East, or Fertile Crescent.
6,300 years ago, the European Neolithic is assumed to have arrived from the Near East via Asia Minor, the Mediterranean, and the Caucasus. Most Eurasians can trace their European part of their ancestry back to Europe.
Bence Avrupa'ya ait.
Ben Avrupalı olarak tanımlayabilirim. Yani kendi yaşayış biçimimi o şekilde tanımlayabilirim.
Çünkü
Peki neden?
Para birimi, çalışma birimi. Hani bizim çalışma yani kriterlerimiz başka, oradaki çalışma kriterleri başka yani.
But nothing in Sumer is older than Nataplaya in pre-dynastic Upper Egypt. Did the ancient Egyptians call themselves black and describe themselves as black? Or is being black a social construct that was created by white supremacists?
You know exactly what the issue is.
You can't say the word black, though, even though they say black.
No,
you can't say black. You want to say dark skin.
Reggie.
No, I'm
you
just
know
asking.
and I know, you know and I know, right? That came from somebody in the 50s. You know it and I know that. Don't play the game.
What is he talking about? This is what I want to ask y'all. This whole standpoint is hella stupid. Let me see something. You know and I know that came from the 50s. What came from the 50s? The book by Herman Rank came from the 50s. Using the word Kim in the book is ubiquitous. The word Kim meaning black is ubiquitous all over Egyptology. I don't even get it. What came from the 50s? He found some people named Kim in the 50s, but we knew Kim meant black since we translated the script. This shit is simple.
This is the great hymn to the Nile, a text that states, "O happy who comes with treasures, who adores the lands, who restores the people, who restores the color of people's skin. The Nile is the Nilotic people. This is a text from the Old Kingdom, the Pyramid of Pepi I. It states, face falls on face because of the black skin shoe picks up. A statue of the Middle Kingdom founder, Mentuhotep, with black skin may point to Nubian ancestry, although the use of black may simply reflect the statue's Osirian symbolisms. Aishayet, Henhenet, Kimset, and Sadeh were probably Nubian.
When we hear about Amenhotep Nefertari, they don't like to tell us everything we should know about her. She's actually one of the chief matriarchs of the 18th dynasty. She was the reason why all them Tadak Amen and Akhenaten and everybody could act like they were such a boss because of her. She installed the new reign of the divine monarchy. Well, it says this. Another example sometimes cited is the appearance of Amenhotep I's queen mother, Amos Nefertari, who is consistently shown with a black. Matter of fact, y'all see they say black in encyclopedias, right?
What did Khalid taught us? And I love his definition more than anything. Dr. Khalid said, black is color, culture, consciousness, and a corresponding cosmic connection.
And I'm black, y'all, and I'm black, y'all, and I'm blackity black, and I'm black, y'all.
It been made against us. Look at what they put in the dictionary about black. Look at what they put in the dictionary about white.
Yes.
Fool. Can't you see that this shit was like, like Nepal was saying, they conspired this. They study us. Yeah. And so this is a way of making us hate our goddamn self.
Why is it we do not have the same respect for members of our race as we do for some other race, especially the white race? And that we were told, quite to the contrary, that we were from a land of savages, of cannibals. And except by the grace of God and the white man, we would have been a lost people. So we should be on our knees forever praying and thanking God that we were brought, even in slavery, to this land to escape the horrors of Africa. And this was brought in and drilled into us generation after generation.
Dr. Williams, if all of the things you say are true, if Africans had such advanced civilizations, hundreds of kings and one African kings in one kingdom before Jesus Christ was born, how did Africans worldwide and Afro-Americans get in the shape they're in? How did these great kingdoms, this great civilization, fall to civilizations that didn't come along until thousands of years after theirs were already established?
They built cities and so forth and so forth. And so this is why you had this great system of nations building becoming so mighty. Now, why did they fall? They fell when this began to decline internally, and when the forces, the external forces, over centuries of effort, finally gained the day. These nations had laws, strict laws, barring foreigners from coming to the interior. Then the same system of gradually settling around the borders, that is foreign traders, and supposed to be traders, but most of them were geographers and others, representing foreign, would establish little trading posts, just ask for permission to establish trading posts on the border. We don't want to come in, we don't come in, we just want to do business with you. We want to sell you what we have, we want to buy some of what you have. Well, the Africans were great traders, always great traders.
The Phoenicians were some of the first to establish coastal trading posts in Libya. This is art from antiquity depicting Rita George. Her indigenous ancestors were Phoenicians. This is how Libya was depicted by the ancient Egyptians. The oldest standing structure in Ethiopia, the Temple of Yeha, is located in Yeha. This is a tower built in Sabine style and dated through comparison with the ancient structures in South Arabia to around 700 BC. In its prime, however, Saba was known as a wealthy kingdom which grew rich through trade along the incent routes between southern Arabia and the port of Giza on the Mediterranean Sea.
The Sabines or Sabines were an ancient people speaking an old South Arabian language who lived in what is today Yemen, in the southwest of the Arabian Peninsula.
So that was one of the weaknesses. They allowed them to settle along the borders, for one thing. The second thing that happened, and this went on, as I point out in the destruction, for several thousand years before the certain countries were finally taken. And when they were taken, like Egypt, look how many times Egypt was taken and retaken.
You say blacks gave up Egypt. Are you saying the Egyptians were black?
Of course the Egyptians were black. The name comes from the...
Kem was another word for Egypt.
Egypt was called the Black Land. Scholars argue that this was because of the Black Nile silt, but remember there is no primary source for that attestation anywhere in the annals of ancient Egypt. That claim actually comes from Strabo, not an Egyptian.
Sheikh a posé le problème que en Égypte, le mot pour noir c'est Kem, Kemet, c'est noir, et Abdallah, égyptologue du Soudan, a contesté.
1974, Cheikh Anta Diop argued that Kemetiu means black people.
Il y a des choses plus compliquées. Donc si on s'arrête là, c'est pas la peine. Moi je sors avec Obengon s'en va.
Because he knows the grammar. And the grammar always follows the grammar. It doesn't change. So just because you have Kim, why does the grammar change with Kim?
According to the Egyptologists and linguistics, Kim means black. Kemet means black land, Egypt. But Kemetiu means Egyptians, when Egypt is a modern term. So what did the ancient Egyptians mean when they called themselves Kemetiu?
2023, Jonathan Owens has proved without a shadow of doubt that black people is not out of the semantic range of the term Kemetiu.
Count Voney is a European. This is what he writing. He said, hey, a nation of blacks had to be the people that taught us, right? This is the guy that said to this people, that taught us how to read and write. And so when you're in school and you're not being taught this, you're being taught blacks are Negroes, blacks history started with slavery. You have no history. Or only West Africa, slave trade. You see that they know we are very ancient. It's in our DNA, is wisdom. It means he is. We just got to tap, just like in our DNA is slavery.
The Department of Housing and Urban Development and the federal government writ large in the first 7 decades of the 20th century invested billions of dollars in racial segregation and concentrated poverty. Each time this country created a peculiar institution that subordinated black people, slavery, Jim Crow, it created and dismantled it. They replaced it with another one.
The redlining created poor neighborhoods, which led to underfunded schools, more poverty, and more black people in prison.
Let me guess. And the cycle continues?
Like a dog chasing its tail.
And the iconic black ghetto, I don't use that as a pejorative, I use it as a descriptor, was a follow-on institution to slavery and Jim Crow.
So the hood ain't the hood because black people made it the hood. Rather, it was intentionally created by the government to oppress black people through a federal policy that would adversely impact them for generations to come.
Precisely.
You know, I came up from a strong background in Queensbridge Projects, you know, and it just instilled in me, you know, what being real is all about and what being a survivor is and a warrior. So.
Before we came to this country, we were kings and queens, never porch monkeys. There was empires in Africa called Kush, Timbuktu, where every race came to get books to learn from black teachers who taught Greeks and Romans, Asian, Arabs.